Alright, here we go. The first game of the set between Naga and the Lieutenant. Alright, so Naga is an AI scripted by Promi and is actually a continuation of his old Promi AI. The Promi AI eventually turned into the DE AI, but that was taken over by Aquo, and so Naga is sort of the modern equivalent of the old Promi AI, while Aquo took the DE AI in a different direction. And so the DEI definitely has some strengths that Naga doesn't have, and vice versa. I think Naga retains a lot of the characteristics that the older DEI had, and of course the older Promi AI, being a very boom heavy focus. I'm curious to see if we'll see that from the Goths. We got some hunting happening fairly early, so that should benefit the Goths here. And in terms of the base layout, we got this forward wood that Naga chose, which is fairly far forward, but otherwise the resources are easily defended enough. We do have chickens, so that'll slow the game down a bit. Meanwhile, the Lieutenant is an AI scripted by me, using pretty much the same code as the General, just slowed down to imitate a weaker player. It's sort of trying to be like if the General was playing on hard difficulty. And so there's manually scripted idle TC time and idle training times for units and things like that. Doesn't use as much DUC, but will still bring in the boar. So it looks like the Lieutenant's missed some of its cows, but it is placing a mill on the chickens. The forage businesses are in the back. We should see a second mill placing those at some point here soon. And the gold itself is forward, and it shows a forest that's also fairly far forward. Hopefully the Lieutenant will pick one of these back forests for its second lumber camp. And the Lieutenant hasn't gone for loom. I think Naga has, yes. So right now they're neck and neck in villagers, but I think that's because of the Lieutenant's idle TC time. It's basically putting itself a villager behind already. And it looks like Naga is going for a drush. We'll have to see how the Lieutenant responds to that. And Naga's adding a mill for chickens. Yep, good to see you, Promi. Hope you can catch it later. Haha. The new TC is able to kill off the scouts. And actually my AIs don't have macro that will automatically garrison a TC if a unit is nearby to try and kill it. That scout must have tried to attack a villager, and then the AI system put the villagers in the TC to defend from the scout, and then killed it off. Alright, so yeah, all the villagers seem to be going over here to gather forage bushes. I'm a bit surprised that none of them are going toward the chickens. I think maybe I turned it off for lower difficulties. At least the General has code to always send villagers over to gather the chickens to kind of split the villagers between forage bushes and chickens, so there's not as much bumping around. Naga going up to the fetal age. And the drush is coming in, so let's see what happens here. If the villagers decide to fight back, they should be able to kill off the militia pretty quickly, but looks like they're not wanting to do that. And the militia correctly avoid the TC. And Lieutenant does have loom at this point. It's going up to feudal age. And currently the militia are trying to attack the mill. They could take it down, but this is also slowing down the Drush. Usually you want the units to be targeting villagers and things like that. But hey, if you can delete this mill and kill it off, that's 100 wood wasted for the Lieutenant. And it'll have to rebuild this eventually, I think. And I'm actually not 100% positive how the Lieutenant will respond once this mill is destroyed. If it'll try to build a new one, or not. But Naga seems to be sending its militia away, maybe trying to find a new target. Should find a slumber camp, I think, next. Alright, so we got a tower. As a response here, let's see if that goes up. Have the militia seen it? Okay, yes, they've seen it now, but don't seem to be going to try and keep it from going up. Alright, so they did find a villager to attack, and so all of the wood villagers are currently not gathering from this slumber camp, but there is a slumber camp here in the back. Yeah, these militia have now found the gold mine. So disturbing this could threaten the Lieutenant a bit. But the villagers are fighting back against the militia this time. And the tower goes up. Which, ideally that tower would have been placed somewhere around here maybe, which could also defend the gold mine to some degree. But we do have this second gold back here. If the Lieutenant will send the villagers correctly to gather from this one, those villagers could be relatively safe with this tower. And, okay, a second mill was placed out here, unfortunately, so that's not a good... I think this is the chicken mill, so if this is the second mill, that's not in a great place. Must have been like its backup mill code for placing one for farms. But we do have a stable here. And it's Persians. The Lieutenant, just like the General, goes for a fast castle, so we might see knights once the Lieutenant can go up to castle age. Behind on gold here. But we got these villagers gathering from the gold here, so we should have the gold relatively soon. Naga hasn't upgraded his militia, but that's probably wise. You don't need to spend that investment just for upgrading 2 units. And no feudal age upgrades, but fletching is coming in soon. So if the Lieutenant can... Alright, so Castle Age just started. Once it gets some knights, those would be able to defend against these feudal age units pretty well. And no spears from Naga at this point yet. And we've got a mining camp for stone. Looks like this mining camp might be taken down. And we'll see if the Lieutenant tries to rebuild it immediately. If so, there might be a fair number of villagers that are sent in and end up just getting cancelled here. So these range units are able to threaten the wood here without being hampered by this tower too much. Alright, got a villager that seems to be a bit too aggressive in trying to kill off these militia. Two villagers have been killed by Naga so far, but a decent amount of idle eco time. Not a huge amount. I think the biggest thing that Naga has done was just deny a couple drop sites, destroying them completely. Alright, so skirmishers did go under the tower here. Looks like it's lost 4 units. I can't 5. I think most of them are from the tower. Maybe one was killed off. Maybe one militia by the villagers. All right, so we got a knight out here, a couple knights here for the lieutenant. So I think these skirmishers should be killed off shortly here. I think this knight might be exploring. I'm not positive. And Naga is almost all the way to Castle Age. Alright, so that attack has ended. Looks like Naga has a few leftover skirmishers. Getting Bodkin and Bosa. Naga's way ahead on resources collected, as you'd expect. Was able to idle the eco for the lieutenant quite a lot. But now we'll have to see what Naga goes for in Castle Age, and might just go for a boom. Let's see. So we got 3 TCs here in a second. Actually got a 4th TC going up. So definitely an aggressive boom strategy. Or, that's kind of an oxymoron. A very determined boom strategy. We've got some more knights coming from the lieutenant. So the game plan here, I think, is that I don't know if the lieutenant has detected the boom from Naga, but it's going to have to do some damage with its knights if it's going to be able to win this game. Naga certainly has the advantage at this point. The only real advantage that the lieutenant has right now is just military. Its current armies will counter what Naga has right now. Alright, got the first armor for the knights. Alright, Naga's adding a monastery. And that'll be quicker than any monastery that the lieutenant has, so Naga might be able to get most of the relics, but it looks like the lieutenant is attacking. So let's see if the lieutenant can cause some damage here. So the lieutenant is scripted to have slower reactions to townsend inner fire. So it will try to retreat them, but only like every 10 seconds or so. Couple killed villagers. Might be able to kill off these skirmishers here. Yeah, let's see, +1 armor. Definitely after +2 armor, knights diving under TC is usually advantageous, I think, rather than trying to keep them away from the TC all the time. Doesn't quite have +2 armor yet. Okay, so these monks might be pretty good in defense here. Looks like that's enough to scare off the lieutenant. Got these spearmen, and lieutenant's only down to 3 knights at this point. Killed 2 villagers from Naga. So not the most successful attack. But in terms of idle eco, that's quite a bit more than the lieutenant. I don't know if all of those 9 minutes was caused by that one attack or not. But definitely not enough damage done to weaken Naga's boom significantly. Briefly taking a look. So it was slowed down temporarily right here. But it seems to be having a faster slope still. So I think at this point the lieutenant will try to build up a larger army of knights, and Naga is responding with pikemen. It's already got 5 pikemen and should have more coming soon. So I think it'll just be a matter of, can the lieutenant get enough knights or add enough counter units? You can see this archer range here to be able to cause some damage with a second attack. Yeah, that might be difficult. Naga has 4 TCs and some monks and pikemen defending most of its economy. This gold mine is like somewhat exposed, and maybe this lumber camp here as well. But overall, the defense centers will be able to defend most places in Naga's town. We got the second armor coming in for the knights, and instead of skirmishers being added against the pikemen, we have cav archers, which is not the worst pick, but it's not really what I would have gone for. This is a very gold heavy comp. Okay, that monk does not get the conversion. That feels a bit unlucky. Naga adding some outposts for exploration. We got one here already. Lieutenant trying to take out this mining camp. Naga being a bit too greedy with trying to build this mining camp forward here. Lieutenant adding another stable. Naga is actually getting ahead on military numbers, so the window for the lieutenant being able to cause some damage here is closing, I think. Especially with 1 minute left before Naga gets to Imperial Age. If Naga can get halberdiers, then it's pretty much game over for the lieutenant. And another limitation of the lieutenant is that it will max out at 80 villagers, just to provide a lower difficulty level. And since it's already reached its capacity of villagers, I kind of wonder if it might be trying to save up for Imperial Age. We already see it building up the food for it. And seems to be sending a lot of villagers to gold, because like, oh, we need a lot of gold right now, we need to go up to Imperial Age. Got this stone mine way in the back here. And we've got the halberdiers from Naga. These will be able to take out everything that the lieutenant has quite quickly. Not seen a lot of siege from Naga yet. We got some swordsmen coming. And the lieutenant's researching Imperial Age. Maybe that's the only real hope that the lieutenant has at this point, but honestly, I'm not sure what the lieutenant could do to respond to this infantry army from Naga. If you let the Goths get to Imperial Age and start their infantry spam, there's not much you can really do. Especially if you're only in Castle Age. Alright, and Lieutenant calls the game. Not terribly close. We had a little blip where the Lieutenant was able to cause some damage, but not nearly enough. Briefly look at the game's numbers. Alright, so Naga won the aggressive map. Now we're going to Arena, the defensive map, which plays even more into Naga's playstyle. Alright, so for Arena, we've got Lithuanians and Vietnamese for Naga. See which one gets chosen. Alright, we got Vietnamese for Naga. And for the lieutenants, either Romans or Slavs. Alright, we got Romans. So, Vietnamese versus Romans. Alright, and here we go for game 2. Alright, so we get to hear the Vietnamese theme song with the with what to us as mostly Western listeners probably sounds like an out-of-tune tuning system, but is what I assume is fairly authentic. Looks like Naga Scout is kind of bugging out here, unfortunately. We got some sheep scouting, so it seems to be some sort of DC. It's kind of hard to script a DC scouting system that works well with forests. Naga missing these sheep as well because of that. So hopefully the scouting bugs itself soon. Meanwhile, we've got the lieutenant back here. And most of its resources are back. We've got the main stone is forward. We also have some deer off to the side, which unfortunately, because the lieutenant's playing at lower difficulty, it will not try to push deer. Though, I think deer pushing has become a skill that most players, even intermediate players, will have. So maybe that's no longer realistic to have on a hard difficulty AI. Maybe a hard difficulty AI should also be able to push deer. Either way, we've got deer in the back here for Naga. Naga seems to have unbugged the scout and has now found those 2 sheep. And so I think Naga escaped having a whole bunch of idle food gatherers, which is good. Lieutenant already has basically a villager's worth of idle TC time. A little bit of idle eco, but again, I think that comes from garrisoning villagers in the TC for hunting the boar. Not necessarily to use like shoot the boar with the TC, but just garrison them in the TC for defense. Alright, so lieutenant's got the lumber camp place, followed by the mill for the forage bushes. And Naga's doing the same, actually adding the second lumber camp on the same forest. It's not the worst pick. This forest has it kind of juts out toward this town center pretty well. But at some point, getting a lumber camp maybe right here would be ideal. So, unfortunately, because of my own time constraints today, I think this will be the last match. I definitely had a hard cutoff of what my time zone is 2 p.m. So I guess 6 p.m. GMT. And I don't think that would leave enough time to finish this match as well as start a new set. So I'll leave this to be the last game of the day. We got a short stream today, but I'll still have enough time to do a much longer stream on Saturday and finish out the rest of the round. And we'll take a little preview at what the brackets, the standings look like after this game. I'm curious if Naga will ever go for this force in the very back. And this even smaller force, the Lieutenant, I'm not sure if the Lieutenant would go for it eventually. Maybe in a very long post-Imperial Age match. Alright, so Naga is about 2 villagers ahead. And seems to be bugging out trying to kill that sheep. Probably some DUC trying to make sure the villagers are attached to the correct sheep, preventing it from attacking it. I'm not sure. Alright, so Naga's researching Feudal Age at 28 pop. Neither AI has Loom yet, which is just fine for Arena. And Naga's adding a gold and stone mining camp. But this seems to be just enough villagers to maybe add in the... Well, it should have enough for 3 TCs with the starting stone, but I think we saw in the last game that Naga tries to go for 4 TCs if it can. So this might just be to get the enough stone to afford the 4 TCs, and that's it. Yeah, if it decides to go for a castle instead, I think we'll see Naga put a lot more villagers on stone. Meanwhile, the Lieutenant is playing slower and just added its gold mining camp. And has also added a stone mining camp of his own. And just finished up all of the forage bushes, and this is a bummer. The Lieutenant decided to place a lumber camp on this so-called forest of 4 trees. But I think we kind of realized the mistake and placed a lumber camp on this forest instead. Which I'm not that upset about. This forest is actually barely inside the walls, so it'd be good for about, I don't know, 5 minutes. But then I'd be worried about chopping through and breaking through and opening up this wall. And Naga's on the way to Castle Age, and it's added a whole bunch more villagers on stone, so we might see a castle here instead of a bunch of TCs. Or maybe both TCs and a castle. I think that would probably work too. Depends on how aggressive of a castle drop that Naga wants to do. So Lieutenant already has the resources for Castle Age as well as several Feudal Age buildings. Alright, market, blacksmith, and we'll train a few villagers while these are getting constructed, and we'll go to Castle Age. We got about 400 stone for Lieutenant, and almost enough stone for Naga to build a castle. Maybe by the time that Naga goes up to Castle Age, he'll have enough. Let's see, not quite perfect timing, and place a town center anyway. This is actually, maybe if you ignore this mining camp, this is like a perfect TC spot. Very nice. That's always really satisfying to see. Even if that AI is going against my own. And there we go. Naga is building the castle. And it's a defensive one. Might have had to actually have deleted some farms here to place it there. Alright, so it looks like both AIs are going for a castle. So we might see some Rattan archers going against the Centurions. And in that particular matchup, I would favor Centurions with their 3 pierce armor. But that dynamic could change if the Centurions are attacking the walls and Rattan archers are defending the walls. Got a 3rd TC being built from Naga. The Lieutenant has added a 2nd TC and has added the castle. This one should defend the walls slightly. I imagine that Naga is trying to get this the wood for a 3rd TC. He's also waiting a little bit for the stone for a 3rd TC. So I think you can see here that the Lieutenant's going for a castle drop into unique units. Rather than what the general does with Bulgarians is the Burgundians is like the scout cavalry into like monks to get the relics. And I think in a lot of cases some people might feel like the general and the lieutenant are essentially the same AI being played in the same tournament. But I think the fact that at least on Arena both are going for different strategies, I think adds a bit of entertainment to it and kind of justifies both AIs being able to play. So we got a 2nd mining camp here for the Lieutenant on the stone. 1st armor for the Centurions. Alright, and Naga's about to place the 4th TC. And also adding monks to grab the relics. How many relics does Naga have already? 1, and at the rate that the game's going, might end up getting all of them. But it looks like the Lieutenant is on the way to start attacking, trying to chase down this scout cavalry. Naga does have the monks to be able to convert the Centurions. So I'm not sure how effective this attack from the Centurions will be. But if these monks are preoccupied with trying to capture the relics instead of defending the base, it's possible that the Lieutenant could break in. We got the +2 armor being researched right now. So this will be the moment that kind of makes or breaks the game for the Lieutenant. If this attack succeeds, then it could make the game close. If not, it's going to be a pretty uneven match, I think. Alright, so then the Centurion was converted, and the Scout Cav was sent inside, but can't escape. And we've got the Rattan archers being trained now. No upgrades yet, but I'm sure those upgrades will come soon. We got fletching. We've also got Imperial Age 2 minutes away for Naga. And unfortunately, we might see a case where the Lieutenant... Okay, for a second I thought the Lieutenant might have canceled its attack completely. And I think it did. But I think it's going again for a 2nd attack. Because if it wants to win this game and give itself any chance at all of winning, it needs to be aggressive in this game. But I'm not so sure that this attack is going to be all that effective. And looks like the Lieutenant might be giving up again. And I'm curious if this is just an attack on the mining camp, or if it'll actually send in an attack to attack Naga at this point. Alright, so it looks like the lieutenant is indeed on the attack. And the villagers let in the Centurions through the gate. Let's see if they can cause some damage. I'm not counting on it. We might see a whole bunch of blue Centurions here pretty soon. We've got 4. So the Naga Centurions now outnumber the lieutenants. And the lieutenant is adding skirmishers properly to try and counter the rattan archers, but it's not going to be enough. So it's pretty likely at this point that the lieutenant has lost the game, but we'll need to play it out a bit further to make sure. Cool to see that Naga's using some Fire Lancers. This might be the first time we've seen these being used in this tournament so far. So, just the Castle Age version so far. But we might see the Elite upgrade at some point. But we'll see Elite Rattan Archer here first. Alright, one castle down. Second one's being constructed here. I think once Naga breaks through the walls, I'll call the game. Alright, I think that is GG. Yeah, it says the Lieutenant's victorious, but of course that's because I forced quit the game. So, not a very close one. But that's about what we'd expect between these two AIs. Naga's just the better boomer by far.